Coming up in our next episode of Driven to Success.
The question I've got is, sometimes why would certain individuals not want to communicate?
Mm,
Now, from the part side of things, we hate to share bad news. Why? Because somebody like Vic may say, well, I'll just buy it somewhere else. We hate to lose that sale.
No one likes to hear bad news. But you know what? I'd rather hear bad news early than hear it late. When I look back into my early days, that's not such an easy philosophy to fulfill. So hopefully in this particular episode, we can help WDs, help reps, help shop owners, help advisors, and help technicians to communicate a little better.
Where the breakdown usually happens, oh my gosh, that just clarity and accuracy and parts information, pretty simple. Turnaround time, responsiveness. It gets down to, what we're trying to do is, how can we be successful with basically some good communication, accurate and communicate. Why? I guess a big question I've got is, sometimes why would certain individuals not want to communicate? Now, from the part side of things, we hate to share bad news. Why? Because somebody like Vic may say, well, I'll just buy it somewhere else.
Right.
And we hate to lose that sale. And so, yeah, I got it. Well, we may have it, but maybe we got no drivers at the moment, or we have it. But the other two parts you ordered, we didn't have. Thank God there's passion for selling when it comes to the counter guys.
Right.
Cause believe me, they don't get paid a lot extra, their commissions, just enough to, I am a 12 pack of beer or something like that. It's just not, it doesn't amount to a lot. So I don't really sometimes even know where all the motivation is. They could just say, yeah, no, I ain't got it, whatever.
Yeah.
But, how many times does a service advisor who actually orders the parts get bad news and, Johnny's already out in the shop kicking boxes. Oof, I don't want to tell him. You tell him. No, you tell him. So, and then setting communication expectations was one that really I zeroed in on.
Mm-hmm.
The establishing agreed upon response times between the shops and the WDs. I think too many times where we get in trouble is we don't establish an agreed upon. We all just assume. So
yeah,
I'm the first thing that came to my mind is assumptions that in stock products will be delivered in a set amount of time. I'll put 45 minutes just to put a timeline on it.
Right.
And assumption that sourced parts got to come from somewhere else will be, 2.5 hours. And all other orders must be communicated to the shops. And so again, assumptions are good because it means less conversation. We can go spend our time somewhere else, but that assumption could be bad if we're off by just a little bit. Maybe a parts guy would take advantage of that quote little 2.5 hour window. Well, it's only going to be 3. He'll be okay.
Yeah.
So
to me, it's as much on the other side as it is, I say the other side is the shop side. We're as much as at fault.
Get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. And it never happens. The shop owner or advisor will never say to the customer, I'm sorry, they sent the wrong parts. Or I'm sorry, the parts aren't here. Not, oh, I'm sorry, we made a mistake and we didn't give them the right production date or VIN number. And, you talk about the lack of desire to let a customer that you might lose the sale to. You don't call them, tell them all the parts aren't there. The same fear is on the service advisor. I don't want to call the customer and tell him he's not going to get his car today. But what is worse? Waiting for the customer to call at 4:30 and say, oh, a car's not going to be done.
And their expectation was it'll be done at 5.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there is an implied contract between the owner of the vehicle dropping it off and the shop doing business with that you will do what you say. Anything different, you will tell me. And one of my brother-in-law's favorite phrases is, what's the worst thing they're going to do? They're not going to eat you. So pick up the phone and call them. No one likes to hear bad news. But you know what? I'd rather hear bad news early than hear it late. But, when I look back into my early days, that's not such an easy philosophy to fulfill. So hopefully in this particular episode, we could cover a lot of ground, but we can help WDs, help reps, help shop owners, help advisors, and help technicians to communicate a little better. So there's one particular statistic that, as I was getting ready for this, that I think you probably know. And I think most people would step back and go, you're probably right. So Dr. Albert Morabian did a UCLA study.
Okay.
In communication, nonverbal cues accounts for 55% of communication. Tone of voice, 38%. That leaves a whopping 7% of all communication skills as verbal, the words we use. All the rest is tone, body language, maybe lack of saying something. And so communication, when we think communication, it's just words. If I had a ball cap on, if I was going to bring it in for this, I had a ball cap, I would put it on backwards and go, well, what message am I communicating right now? Either A, I'm super relaxed, it's my chill weekend. Maybe some people look at me like I'm a doofus. I'm not. But what message does that send? And what does it say? And so maybe we can highlight on those too.
And you were talking about communication and nobody wants to hear bad news. And it's hard to, I guess you're going to be a little bit more reserved before you share bad news. And really, why is that? So I jumped down to culture of communication, building the trust and all that. Well, trust to speak up is a lot of times based on history. It's based on prior responses received. And so if those prior responses, like you were saying, was kind of, well, he didn't even have time for me. He's not really paying attention to me, or he, chewed my head off, then that's going to dictate the culture of communication.
Right.
Because, people remember, and people, are going to live off of prior experiences.
Right. People can change though too. That's something we have to remember. And no matter how poor our communication was before, we can always improve upon that. And I may not like the particular parts rep that I've been dealing with because his communication skills were so poor. And I can think back to the days whenever I would call XL, I would get Carlos, I would get Mary, I would get Jimmy. Bobby was always fun one to talk to. And you always knew each of those communication styles. But when there was a new guy, it's like, I didn't want to talk to the new guy because he didn't know me. I didn't know him. Or there was one particular person I spoke with that just didn't get it. He might have got somebody else, but he might not have got that, that Yankee transplanted Texan.
So it's a combination of a learning curve and it's a combination of relationship.
Yeah. Totally.
So you got to learn this, okay, I got to learn this new person, but maybe in the next car, I am busy. I got to get this order in. I got to make it happen, and so next time. And that poor new guy, he could be a transfer from another one of the call centers, could be one of the best counter guys in the world. But until you get stuck with them, that's what we say. Until you get stuck with that special person, you don't get to develop the relationships.
Well, harken back to the early days when I used to run those guys out of the shop. It's like, all I asked for them to do was set an appointment. And what was the breakdown in communication? They weren't listening. And that is as much communication as the words that come out, is listening and processing those. All I ask is, just do me a favor. Just don't drop in. Just set an appointment. Please. I will give you my time. Just don't interrupt my day. And it sounds like I'm putting them off, but I'm trying to honor their time.
So what did you just say? You were talking about, sounds like, they're you don't want them to waste time. It sounds like they're ruining your day. And at the same time, I would tell you, a salesperson saying, wait a minute, I got to stop, call, make an appointment, do this. Then I got to somehow manage that appointment. In other words, so, a lot of sales folks from the parts industry, the agenda's loose.
Right.
I'm gonna head northeast today. I'm gonna go up I-45 today. I'm gonna do this area today. But to be tied down to, an agenda where it says at 1:30 I've got to be here. um, I will tell you from the sales perspective, well, we don't know how long each conversation is going to be. I show up to this one shop and then, the owner's busy. So I got to sit back for 15, 20 minutes. And so it's, you're asking them for a commitment. Okay. They're asking you for a commitment.
Right.
Okay. However, what they heard was, well, no, he's asking me for a commitment to commit to this time. And I don't know if I can because,
Mm-hmm.
my day is always driven by the moment.
Right.
And you know, uh,
We're
if
riding
we
that
could,
next, essentially we're riding that next wave.
sure.
Well, think about a couple weeks ago when you and I are out in California. We're out with Roger at Fast. I can't tell you how difficult it was for me just to drop in on those shops because all I'm thinking is
Right,
here.
the same
Here it
thing.
was, that shop owner that just don't drop in. And do you remember that one guy that we stopped in to see? Where when we walked down the driveway, it was that shop that was mostly lifts outside, and he was walking across the driveway and he's like, hi Roger, and go see Linda or whatever the service advisor's name was. I don't remember what it was. And he clearly communicated to us, one, he was busy, he had cars to do, and he pushed us off, blew us off is probably a nicer way to put it. So what was fascinating, and I may have shared this story with you, but while I stood there, when you and Roger were talking to the gal, and you guys had a great conversation, and I'm just kind of looking around the shop, and something caught my eye, and that was his dispatch board, whiteboard. It had pinstripes on it, and he was, had everything in processing like the same. And I looked at that, and I'm like, that reminds me of how I used to run my shop. And so here he is standing off to my right. And this is what was fascinating because I told you he blew us off. And I looked over to him. He was maybe 2 feet away. He was at a terminal. He was clearly did not want to talk to me. I was, hey, I want to compliment you on that dispatch board. And he immediately was like, oh, it's old style. I'm like, it's really cool because that reminds me of mine. And he's like, really? The next thing you know, we connected.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, well, it's got some things that, I would like to change. And it's not as up to date. I'm like, does it work for you? He's like, yeah, it does. I'm like, then keep doing it. And the next thing you know, that guy who blew us off when we walked in gave me, uninterrupted time. In fact, I told him, I said, let me leave you alone. I don't want to stop, bother you. And he goes, no, it's he kept on wanting to talk. So I listened to his body language when he pretty much would leave us alone. But that one compliment opened the door.
Sure.
And so, if you think about go back to the conversations when I ran your guys off, if they had just said what you had just articulated, well, I got to manage all this. Well, okay. If they'd have said, hey, can we set an appointment right now? You know what I would have done? Absolutely. Let's get our calendars out.
Yep.
And maybe it's just taking the time. And I think from a communication standpoint, I know this, and you do too. The person that's speaking is the one they take responsibility for what the person hears, whether it be a grimacing face, whether it be how they blew them off. And my blow off was pretty nice, I think. I think I was nice. And of course, I'm going back to maybe 25 years. But it was important to me that this guy got the message. And of course, the second one shows up and then the third one shows up. And I'm like, honestly, I was done. And you came in and saved the day.
Oh, good stuff. All good stuff there, Vic. I'm telling you. And it is. Communication's got to be the right time. Again, most of the time with what I'm doing now with the service centers, I ask for dedicated appointments.
Right.
the warehouse salesperson, please set these appointments, this kind of deal. And invariably there'll be something kind of there, where even the appointment was set, but the day's going horribly wrong for the shop owner.
Mhm.
And I've had a couple of those where, uh, the shop owner's like, no, I had this appointment, but I really don't have time. And I can give you 5 minutes.
Right.
And on purpose, I just took it off so I don't beat it against my desk. But on purpose, I'll look at my watch.
Mhm.
I'll say, okay. Or better yet, I'll get out my cell phone.
Mhm.
I'll say, okay, not a problem. And I'll set a 5-minute timer. And I just set it down off the side. Well, as soon as I set the timer down, that was noticed. Hey, this guy listened.
Right.
5 minutes. Now, he can't cut me short. Said I get 5 minutes.
Yeah.
At the end of the 5 minute, whatever it is, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I don't care what it is, but at the end of the 5 minutes or 10 minutes, this thing goes off. Then I stop.
Yeah.
Mid-sentence, everything. Hey, I really appreciate the time you've given me. Now I'm overstaying my time.
Right.
And, we can possibly come back and follow up. And if the content is absolutely moving the needle, most of the time I get, well, you can keep going. You
Yeah.
can keep going.
Yeah.
But it's respecting their time and listening to what what they told you at the very beginning. They want to make sure somebody's not wasting their time. And so, all right, if this guy is big, tall, ugly guy from Texas is going to waste my time, he's only going to get 5 minutes of it. And then I got reason. I've already set the ground rules to run him off.
Right.
And then in this case, again, most of the times, no, I tell you what, why don't you keep on going? Okay, fantastic. Now I got the authority, the approval, not authority, the approval.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, and you said it, you listen and you apply it. And that's from this side of it speaks volumes. Now, I'm sure you know this from your role, the amount of calls that shop owners get and advisors that just flat out waste their time. I get them here at Shop Owner Coach. It's like I get spam call after spam call of somebody wanting to sell me some kind of widget of some sort, and times at a premium. And of course, I think from the shop owner standpoint, we don't think about the premium value of time and the distributor side of it and the sales rep side of it. And I think if we were to all sides ratchet up to what is best for the other person, how can I serve them? Because I think if we come through the standpoint of I'm here to serve my client, I'm here to serve my parts store. We're each other's customer in one way or another. And kind of like what you do with that guy who said, give me 5 minutes. You establish mutual grounds of respect. I think it goes back to the lack of really the words that we use. It's more the intonation, tone, body language, all that goes with it. Students of communication skills are highly valued in your side and our side of the industry.
Sure. And I think you had made mention in a previous conversation that you hired quite a few women for your counter, because guess what? How many of the cars come into the shop are brought in by women nowadays versus the guys?
Yeah.
Now, what's the reason behind that? I'll never be able to figure that out.
No.
But you got to match your customer base. You got to match your audience or your customer base with your current staff. And right away, in what historically has been classified as a man's world, for a woman to bring a vehicle into an auto repair center, there's anxiety. Okay. Oh my gosh, this guy going to tell me everything. I really don't want all the details. It's just, it's my car. I just need it right. And then at the same time, then all of a sudden, they're talking to another woman and they're able to, relate and get through it. Guys, I mean, either we drive, we don't talk enough, we try and get too technical.
Right.
It's just kind of how we are.
Well, I think from a technician standpoint, we understand the complexity of it. And it's not that the other person doesn't, whether it's a man or a woman on the other side of the counter dropping the vehicle off. I mean, a large bulk of people dropping cars off do not know how they work. Correct. And you know, I get in these conversations with Marlene, and I will get highly technical. Unfortunately, she's like, she checks out, and I recognize that. I'm like, and so I have to step back and go, okay, let me dial it back. She goes, yeah, you probably need to, because you lost me a long time ago. And it's not that people don't have the intelligence; it's just they're not excited about it like we are.
Correct. There's something else in their world that, you know, is more entertaining to them, more exciting to them, more, um, you know, all those questions come up. Hey, how does this work? Or what does this work? How does this do? And the automobile, you know, again, for a motorhead, what do you mean you don't want to know how all this works? You know,
right.
And most car drivers say, look, I want to be able to jump in, turn the key. Actually, nowadays, jump in, push the button,
yeah.
and it fires up, and off we go.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of other things that the general public's focused on nowadays besides how a widget actually works. Whether it's this refrigerator, it doesn't matter what it is.
Well, I'll share with you a couple things here. First off, that's what I realized with the customer. They want to know, first off, are you going to solve my transportation problems? Meaning, are you going to get me home? Second, can you fix it? 2, is the part available? 3, when will it be done? And 4th is typically what the cost is. That's typically the lowest end of it. The details in the middle, you're going to find the odd duck. Like when we had a Mr. Munn, he was an engineer and he loved to talk about how things worked. Now, I'll share with you, I had 2 hips replaced a couple years ago. And it was really fascinating because doctors are a lot like technicians in this respect. You know, the doc, you know, he shows me this thing, you know, when I'm getting ready to have the joint replaced. But it was afterwards, after the pain was all gone. I'm like, hey, doc, can you show me that thing again? And he got all excited. He went out and he's showing me how it all worked. And he got all technical on me. And you know what was fascinating is watching this guy talk just like a technician. And I gave him permission to do it. Now, here's what's fascinating is you think about the complexity of a surgery. Start to finish on my first hip, 1.5 hours. From the time they started slicing on me till the time I put it in. And he aligned my foot right. Second one was 1 hour and 15 minutes. I guess he figured out how to do it a little quicker on that next one.
Maybe you were out of alignment just a little bit less on the second one.
What's fascinating is I asked him, I said, how did you line these things up without, you know, like I'm thinking he had an alignment machine. He goes, I just did them by eye. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So some of the people out there who are listening, some of the customers are going to be like that doctor who want to explain it, but they're not going to want to, you know, most of them are not going to want to hear it. That was part of the communication skills of listening and knowing your client base. Oh, on the service advisor, here's the reason why I always recommend having a lady as an advisor. Between a man and a woman, women have much more attuned listening skills, whereas a technician comes service advisor. When the customer starts telling them what's wrong with their vehicle, they check out about on the second half of the conversation because they're in their mind, they're already trying to fix it. And I've done that. And unfortunately, we miss the next bits of the conversation or the next questions we need to ask them. So when I had, you know, my lady advisors in those seats, it was like, listen to the customer, address what their needs are, ask these questions, get it documented on the work order, and then get it communicated to the technician so we can get it through the shop quicker. Ladies are eager to please. I guess men, we want to show people how we can do things.
Yeah, no, I think I kind of want to stay silent during this segment right here, you know, so I don't incriminate myself.
Oh, come on now.
If my wife were to listen to this episode, this could go downhill real quick.
I've already thrown myself under the bus once.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. And Marlene came in, she would do the same thing. She'd drive over me a couple times. And then she'd look in the mirror and go, did he get run over well enough? Let's go do it again. Oh gosh.
Yeah, you're gonna get me in trouble before this is all over with.
That's the point of this. That is the point of this.
I don't know about that.
Well, I think what I want as we talk about this episode of communication is how can we underscore from your side and my side, how can we speak to them, warehouse distributors and leaders? How about this one? This particular statement hopefully resonates with everybody. And I'll ask you the question. David, would you believe this statement is true? In the absence of communication, we tend to think the worst.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had to think about that because, there could be all kinds of scenarios, but bottom line, you know, if it was fun or exciting or positive news or something like that, we're always quick to be able to put it out there.
Right.
If it is, just the opposite of that, we're already thinking about the response that we're going to get. So if I'm going to be sharing negative, chances are the response is going to come back negative. If I've got to relay that we have let somebody down, I better be ready to get my head bitten off. You're right. We do really focus on the negative and not necessarily the negative we're trying to relay to somebody. It's the negative response we're going to get in return.
Right. Well, I think of it this way. If we don't call a customer and we tell them we're going to call them at 2 and we don't call them, what starts to run through their head?
Yeah,
Wow.
you're not important.
Well, or this, I wonder what else they found wrong with my car.
Or are they even working on my car?
Or yeah, exactly. Are they working on my car? Yeah. Or if so let's say Jimmy commits to having parts to me by 2, and the order comes in, he didn't tell me 25% of it wasn't there. Like, great. Do they even have it? Now I'm a technician now because I got a car on the rack. I don't either have to get off or move on to something else. And I think that's part of the reason we don't tell anybody, because we expect the worst. I want to tell a story on me. I used to have a propensity for showing up to the shop, walk through the door, and head straight to my office. And I got a reputation for being always coming in irritable. But that was the furthest thing from the truth. It's kind of like, when Jimmy said, I wouldn't send anybody to you for this reason. And I had a heart to heart with Marlene. I'm like, what am I going to do? And she said, she said, I'm going to ask you a favor. I'm like, okay. And she goes, when you go in tomorrow, I want you to park. And she goes, so you've been driving and you've been thinking. And she goes, when you think, you look really ticked off. And so go back to that, the body language or facial expressions. People are already looking at me. I'm communicating a message without saying a word that I look really ticked. And so she said, but what I want you to do is park, throw it throw it up and park, look in the mirror and smile. And it was really weird because I am hands on the wheel and smiling at the mirror. And she goes, then go in and say hi to everybody. And man, that began to change the atmosphere around the shop, because all I did was, hey, good morning. How you doing? Anything you need? If you need anything, I'm upstairs. Everything began to change because I wasn't communicating. They thought the worst.
And you set the tone no matter what you did. So if you weren't communicating, you set the tone.
Right.
Without even saying anything.
Right.
If you're starting your day fresh, you look yourself in the mirror and you walk in, you talk to somebody, you smile at somebody, you set the tone.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And so, setting the tone, any tone for any action, there's a reaction. And so again, that's I'm gonna give Maureen a gold star for that one.
Yeah, well, and I should, because unfortunately that's the story I tell on myself all the time, because as we work with shop owners, this is a problem that a lot of shop owners have, is recognition to the people that work for them. That recognition and giving reviews. You'd be surprised at the shop owners when they on board. I said, when's the last time you gave an evaluation? They're like, I haven't. I had one the other day. He goes, he knows better. He's been with us for a little more than a year. And he said, I've got this and this wrong with this new person who's only been with me 2 months. I'm like, okay. Did you give your 1 week evaluation? No. 30-day? No. 60-day? No. I'm like, okay, why are you having this problem? Yeah, you're right. I should have said something sooner. And what's fascinating about this is when you hit the 90-day mark with somebody that's been working with you, pretty much their behaviors are etched in stone. In those first 90 days they're pliable. So, the Marlins encouraging me to change also helped me and our team to help coach our clients better because one, most of us who are shop owners, we work on cars. We're object oriented. We weren't people oriented, and nobody trained us. Unlike you, who early on went to Dale Carnegie.
Hey, trying to, what do they call that? Overachiever.
Yeah.
Had absolutely no idea what I was getting into. Absolutely no idea.
So what was that like?
So it was purely by accident.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was I'm going to say probably a good 2 years into it. So I got my first auto parts to run all by myself on my 21st birthday.
Mm.
And so, again, when you're that young, you don't know what you don't know, and you just have to work hard and make up for it. So I did. And really what became of it is part of my year-end bonus. Yeah, I'm sitting there looking at it and kind of really looked good, enjoyed it, and didn't know what I was going to do with that money. Historically, I save most of my money. So a couple of days later, postcard comes in the mail, and it's talking about a breakfast and networking, and if it said Dale Carnegie on there, I had no clue what that even meant.
Right.
Okay, I had no clue. So I talked to Sandy, and I decide I'm gonna do this, and this is so out of my box. I'm supposed to be in that auto parts from can to can. And now I'm going to take a couple hours off and go halfway across town and go sit in the Hilton. It was in the Hilton Hotel and in their breakfast area. So I go sit there, and this guy is just blowing and going. He was actually the instructor. You got to sell your own class,
right?
And I still didn't totally know what I was getting into, but way back then, corporations didn't pay for it. You paid yourself. And so I was using personal money. So I went home, told Sandy, I said, it's $795. This is a long time ago. And I said, I want to do this. And she's okay. Yeah. Again, she's not sure what I'm getting into. And really so many people look at Dale Carnegie as a way to help you with public speaking. And believe me, there were some folks in our class that really needed some help with. I mean, it can be very unnerving for some people. But the two far extremes in my class, one lady, she couldn't even, I remember her introducing herself. You're supposed to stand up and turn around and face everybody and introduce yourself and your name and your profession.
Right.
And she couldn't even do that. And so she stayed in her seat. She focused forward. And that was the best she could pull off. So that's a very far extreme right there.
Right.
And then we had a young gentleman who was actually a college student, Philip Wingate. And oh my gosh, this young man has so much energy. You wanted to sit on the opposite side of the room from him. I mean, it was just too much. It was like 3 Red Bulls, he just going and going. And I tell you that to move forward, and we all went through the same class. And a lot of neat episodes and all that kind of stuff. And at the end of this class that all of us went through, we're all different. I told you about the lady who couldn't even face anybody.
Yeah.
And at the end of that, she could get up, talk to them, and you're supposed to relay, what helped you the most. And she talked about it. She says, this public speaking, I'm still a little nervous, but I mean, I was petrified.
Right.
And everybody in here, and George, who was our instructor, said, I want to thank you. It was a heartfelt, personal thank you. Now it's Philip Wingate's turn. The 3 Red Bull kind of guy just spinning like a top. And really, he could really get on your nerves. So it's his turn to get up there. And he's same thing. And he says, never had a problem public speaking, all that. He says, but what y'all may not have noticed, and it took me a while to figure it out, is the same course that helped help people with public speaking helped calm me down.
Hmm.
So courage, for the people that need courage, and for him, he didn't need any more courage. Believe me, he didn't. And he said it calmed me down. He said I actually was able to see myself. And he says, now I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to apologize. He says, I know I made some of y'all's life in here a little bit less enjoyable because I was just a little bit too wired up.
Wow.
And that's when all of us had that wow moment.
Yeah.
How can that be? We all had the same class, same criteria,
Mm-hmm.
and it literally balanced people out.
Wow.
So it was an awesome experience that we went through, and I went through it one time, and 6 months later got called back by the same instructor to go through it again. I'm thinking, what did I do? Did I fail? I didn't think I did. I got a little certificate that says I made it. And he was, no, he said, will you help me with another class? And you'd be a graduate assistant, doesn't charge you anything, but I'm asking for your commitment for another 12 weeks and once a night for 12 weeks and help me. I need two of you guys and help me with the class. And so, uh, second time, be able to really go through and refine and hone my skills by seeing other people go through it. And I had very little interaction in the class, only when asked, only when needed. But it was really seeing other people grow a second time, a whole new set of people that really was, I'm gonna say, priceless.
It's wild. Now, have you ever been involved with Toastmasters?
I have not. I've heard about it, and I just have not.
Well, so what Dale Carnegie did for those people, Toastmasters did for me. And I never ever saw myself speaking in front of people. Well, in 2005, our church formed a Toastmasters group for some of the people in the church. And
Okay.
a good friend of mine, Charlie, was like, "Hey, Vic, I want you to be part of it." And of course, I did not want to be part of it, but he's like, "This will do you some good." I'm like, "All right, fine." Because I trusted Charlie. Well, we're getting ready to charter and have our first meeting. What happens? I get invited to give the very first speech to our Toastmasters group, and not just to the Toastmasters group, but to the leadership in the Gulf Coast.
Hmm.
And here I went from this. I mean, I had death grip. I had like a 5-minute speech, and I had it written down. And I stood up in front of the group, and I'm like, and I wouldn't let go of the lectern. I was just nervous as anything, a dry mouth. But what's interesting about going through Toastmasters and that first experience was I was able to then learn the fundamentals of speaking, because whether we're talking to a customer or whether we're talking to a rep talking to their a shop owner, there's an opening, which is the intro, the body, the meat of it, and the conclusion. Whether it be, "Hi, how are you? I want to talk to you about this special," or I want to talk to you about your vehicle. But it's how to tell a story, and that's what Toastmasters kind of helped me structure. It was how to tell a story. Now, you've seen my articles in Shop Owner Magazine. That helped me to be a writer, to realize in everything, you're going to start with an opening, and then you're going to have the middle where you're going to kind of explain it, and then how you're going to wrap it up. And it was really, it was eye-opening. Looking back now, it's 20 years ago. What was fascinating is I was invited earlier this year in January to give the opening speech of the 20th anniversary. And it was encouraging to talk about, and my title was From Death Grip to Nationally Known Speaker. And it was, and if I found later, it encouraged the people that were out there. Every one of us have a different public speaking journey. And I think I shared with you, I'm quite the introvert, but you don't see that because I've learned how to speak. I've learned how to, establish this relationship, and go back to what my brother-in-law said. What's the worst thing that can happen? They can't eat you. They can reject you. It's like, okay, I don't want to talk to that person then. But Toastmasters, they're all over the U.S. In fact, they're international. And so I think listening to your story and the Toastmaster story, whether, if anybody's listening to this, I would strongly encourage getting involved with either Dale Carnegie or Toastmasters. And Toastmasters is ongoing, and Dale Carnegie is a window. But practicing delivering your message, no one can deliver more authentically than you can.